Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Key Club International podcast. My name is Kyle Hanson. I'm from the Pacific Northwest, and I currently serve as Key Club International president. Today, I'm joined by Michelle Study-Campbell, Kiwanis Executive Director, to discuss the state of the Key Club International financial structure and talk about some frequently asked questions regarding Key Club International's dues. Michelle, we are so excited to have you joining us today. Do you want to introduce yourself and your role within Key Club and Kiwanis?
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. I'm so excited to be here today. Love talking Key Club, and I do love talking finances, probably second only to Key Club. But so my name is Michelle Study-Campbell. I am the Kiwanis Youth Programs and Service Leadership Programs Executive Director. I have been at Kiwanis almost 6 years now. And prior to coming to Kiwanis International, I served as the Chief Executive Officer for Ronald McDonald House Charities of Indiana. And so I've been working in the nonprofit space and leadership for quite some time, and just excited to be here during this important time for Key Club.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. We'd like to first provide some background information regarding Key Club International's dues to the members tuning in. So for today's episode, there are several key terms you might want to be familiar with regarding the budget. So to familiarize yourself with this vocabulary, please visit keyclub.org/dues adjustment or look at the budget vocab terms that are now on the screen. At the moment, Key Club International obtains most of its revenue from membership dues and our international convention. The money obtained from dues is what keeps our organization running. Michelle, would you mind explaining more about the significance of dues in covering Key Club International's expenses and the general outlook of Key Club International's budget?
Absolutely. So while Key Club International, part of Kiwanis Youth Programs, is classified as a nonprofit, we're really a membership organization. And in membership organizations, dues from members is the lifeblood of the organization. Like 99.99% of our revenue comes from our dues and convention fees. Get a little bit of grant money from the Children's Fund for special projects. We're certainly looking at alternatives for fundraising, but we're a membership organization, and members pay dues to keep the organization alive and thriving.
Wonderful. And with that and knowing about dues, could you dive a little bit into Key Club International's budget and the outlook of it right now and over the next few years?
Yeah, absolutely. And so even before the pandemic, Key Club International had hit a high mark of 250,000 members, but for the past almost decade had been dropping significantly. We were down to about 225,000 members, and then COVID-19 struck, and we dropped down to 65,000 paid members. We took a hit. As many of you recall, one of the first things that schools did was to cancel all extracurricular, anything outside of the core curriculum was canceled overnight. And so, as you might imagine, a program like Key Club was hit significantly. During that time, we utilized our reserves and we cut expenses to the bone. We eliminated mailings. We moved everything online, which is something we needed to do anyhow, but it was really accelerated. And we really went through the budget to cut as much as humanly possible without cutting the program to the core, knowing that this was just hopefully a small point in time, and that after COVID-19 ran its course, we would be back. And so we used some of our reserves, but we did have to dip into those reserves to keep the organization moving forward. So right now, as we are rebuilding, and we're almost back to that 225,000, but we still have a deficit. The last time that dues were increased was in 2014, a decade ago. Many of you were in elementary school, and think about the prices of things in the last 10 years. They have skyrocketed. The cost of doing business, no matter how many things we have cut, continues to increase. And so that is why we have a deficit of about 125,000, and we can't continue to operate like that. We've been around for 99 years. We're celebrating the 100th, and we want to make sure we're around for the next 100 years.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that overview of our budget. And now that you have a little bit better of an idea to those tuning in today about the due structure and the Key Club International budget, we know there are various other questions about what a potential dues adjustment might look like. So I do want to add that Key Club International has already hosted several virtual town halls before the International Convention to encourage members to attend these and get to learn and contribute to these conversations. Moreover, we would like to answer a few frequently asked questions during this episode to provide additional context with you today. So with that, another commonly asked questions we've gotten is if our membership votes to increase the international dues amount at International Convention, what would the additional funds go towards?
Yeah, so I think the first order of business is a balanced budget. Second order of business would be to kind of repay those reserves because we never know what's around the corner and we need to be prepared. And then I think we probably just need to take a pause and make sure that we know what our membership wants. The Kiwanis, or rather the Key Club International Board, has been very direct and clear that didn't want to make a bunch of big, bright, shiny promises that people that may or may not happen, right? And so instead of going out and spending that potential dues revenue immediately, we need to take a pause. We need to repay those reserves, get a balanced budget, and then take a look at what will have the biggest and greatest impact for our organization as we move forward in the next 100 years. Is it bringing back LeadCon? Is it investing in additional technology? We've talked in the past about adopting text messaging service to add that to our communication stream, but I think that's going to require just as many conversations about the right path for the organization as the dues increase has.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I really especially appreciated what you talked about regarding the next 100 years of Key Club. Kind of with that theme and idea, thinking into the future, could you talk about any potential changes we might see to Key Club International's budget in the near future that would require a dues adjustment?
Yeah, thank you so much. So we've really been talking a lot about inflation, insurance, which is the next big thing, and investing in our future. So that insurance piece, right now, Key Club members enjoy liability coverage and insurance for all of our events and the work that we do. You have a big fundraiser, someone trips and falls and breaks their ankle, you're covered. You don't have to pay for it out of your pocket. It comes out of the Key Club Kiwanis International insurance. We have never paid a penny for that insurance. It has been coverage that has been extended to us from Kiwanis International. However, as everyone's budgets become tighter and insurance prices are escalating at just a rapid rate, we anticipate that Kiwanis International Board of Directors will ask us to pay $1 per member for the privilege of that insurance, which would add another $225,000 to our estimated budget next year, on top of the $124,000 deficit that we currently have. We cannot sustain those deficits for too many years. We will just be out. We can't do it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So I definitely think I see the need for that potential dues adjustment to help fix our budget. And another common question we've got related to not only cutting expenses, but getting revenue is why Key Club International requires a dues increase or adjustment as opposed to exploring fundraising and grant options.
Yeah, so absolutely. So that goes back a little bit to the information I was sharing earlier, right? We're not a social services organization. We're not feeding the hungry. We're not saving the planet or the animals or any kind of traditional social service organization. We are a membership organization, and membership organizations really exist by their members chipping in and paying part of those dues. We are looking at ways to reactivate our alumni and do some other fundraising, but it will never take the place of dues. We simply put, many of our activities are not a good fit for proposals for philanthropic grant writing and so forth. So we are looking to get creative in some ways, but it will not replace the dues income.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And then in addition to a dues adjustment, the International Board has been considering proposing a subsidy program to help some non-North American districts with this dues adjustment, considering the exchange rates may have a greater impact on their club with this adjustment being based in US dollars. So a question we've got on that we would love for you to talk more about is how that subsidy would work, how we find the eligibility of certain districts, and sort of the behind the scenes of that, and what your work has been working with our finance team to figure this all out.
Thanks, Kyle. It actually has taken a little bit because we've had to coordinate with finance and the IT team, right? Because any change we make outside of the normal 7 or 10 or whatever the figure is per person requires a great deal of change. I actually learned the other day it is 37 steps within our system to make that change. So what we're looking at is we're calling it a dues relief subsidy. And so countries or districts will be able to apply if they need dues relief, right? So we've heard from some, they absolutely would want some relief. We've heard from others, we can figure it out. So we will have an application process. It's 4 questions. It is super simple. We're not making people jump through hoops. And so that amount will be set in policy each year by the Key Club International Board and the Kiwanis Youth Programs Board. And then we would change that entire country or district, depending upon how they're organized. We would lower those dues and it would be the same for everybody, right? So if it's a $3 discount, everyone who applies would get the $3 discount. If it's 2, everyone would get the 2. It's not going to be variable. And then again, it's just 4 questions, super simple, can be done in just a few minutes, but we need to have on record that people are requesting that dues relief. And we've set it at $35,000 gross national income per capita based on the World Bank annual index. And so we'll share a link to that. Know that that changes every year though, the World Bank data, but we believe that would cover all of our countries so far that have listed that they need assistance.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for providing that information and really going into detail. It definitely sounds like some flexibility and change year to year is really baked into this, which I think the membership really appreciates and the iBoard appreciates as well. And with that, I think those were our most common questions we got regarding the dues adjustment. So we really appreciate getting to hear your perspective from a staff side and having been serving with Key Club and Kiwanis for so long. It's getting to hear sort of your perspective on this and your input. And to those that are still tuning in, thank you so much for joining us and listening to this podcast episode. Know that we are still planning to host future town halls, Google Forms, and other opportunities for members to provide input and ask their questions, voice their ideas regarding the proposed dues amendments prior to the International Convention in July. So although the International Board has proposed the inflation-based dues adjustment, the $3 dues adjustment, and also the policy change to include a subsidy program, know that it's still possible to change the membership of these amendments by at the International Convention during House of Delegates. So these are not at all final, and we look forward to continuing to hear your input and get your questions answered. So if you do have any additional questions, please don't hesitate to contact myself at kyle.hanson@keyclub.org or your international trustee. And again, thank you so much again, Michelle, for joining us. And thank you all for tuning in to today's episode.